Everyone thinks they know the American Revolution, but what if I told you the rebellion that created the United States was far more daring, complex, and dangerous than most realize? And at the heart of it all was George Washington, leading an untested army against the most powerful empire in the world. Stick around, because this story of courage, strategy, and survival is one few truly know. George Washington wasn't just a military leader, he was a symbol of the emerging American identity. Before the Revolution, he was a surveyor and a landowner in Virginia, involved in local politics but far from a renowned figure on the world stage. Yet his early experiences, especially during the French and Indian War, would prepare him for the trials that lay ahead. In that war, Washington learned the harsh realities of command, logistics failures, undertrained troops, and the unpredictability of guerrilla-style warfare. These lessons would prove invaluable during the Revolution, where he faced a far more formidable opponent, the British Empire, the most powerful military force of the era. The American Revolution itself was not an inevitable uprising. The colonies were deeply divided, and many people remained loyal to the crown, fearing instability and economic ruin if they rebelled. Taxes like the Stamp Act, the Townshend Acts, and the Tea Act had inflamed tensions, but for many colonists, rebellion seemed a dangerous and uncertain path. What changed was a combination of intellectual, economic, and political pressure. Influential pamphlets like Thomas Paine's Common Sense argued that independence was both necessary and achievable. Revolutionary committees began organizing militias and local governments in defiance of British authority. But ideas alone wouldn't win a war. Leadership was required. That's where Washington came in. In June 1775, the Second Continental Congress appointed George Washington as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. It was a controversial choice. He was not the most experienced general in America, and there were other leaders with more formal military credentials. But Washington's selection reflected more than just military capability. It was about trust, moral authority, and the ability to unite the diverse colonies under a single cause. Washington's presence provided legitimacy to the revolution, giving hesitant colonists confidence that their struggle was worth supporting. The challenges he faced were immense from the start. The Continental Army was poorly equipped, poorly trained, and often poorly supplied. In contrast, the British Army was professional, disciplined, and backed by one of the largest empires in history. When Washington assumed command, his army was little more than a collection of local militias, often reluctant to fight outside their home regions. Many soldiers deserted or refused to endure harsh winter conditions. Yet Washington's leadership, patience, and ability to inspire loyalty kept the army together. His strategies were often defensive at first, buying time for training and gaining international support. One of Washington's most famous early feats was the crossing of the Delaware River on Christmas night, 1776. At a time when morale was dangerously low and many colonists had begun to doubt the revolution's chances, Washington led a daring surprise attack on the Hessian forces in Trenton, New Jersey. The victory was small in terms of territory gained, but monumental psychologically. It reignited hope, proved that the Continental Army could win, and demonstrated Washington's willingness to take calculated risks. It was a pivotal moment that helped sustain the revolution through its most precarious phase. But the war wasn't just about battles. Washington understood the importance of logistics, diplomacy, and public perception. He meticulously organized supply lines, negotiated with Congress for funds and support, and cultivated relationships with foreign allies. Perhaps the most consequential of these alliances was with France. After the American victory at the Battle of Saratoga in 1777, France recognized the United States as a legitimate power and committed military and financial support. This alliance was critical, providing troops, naval support, and resources that turned the tide against the British. Washington's ability to coordinate with allies and maintain the army's cohesion in the face of shortages was as vital as any battlefield maneuver. Washington also faced immense personal challenges. He was away from his family for years, living under constant threat of death or capture, and enduring the humiliation of setbacks and defeats. Yet he maintained discipline and avoided the pitfalls that ruined other revolutionary leaders, such as corruption, mutiny, or surrender to despair. His resilience was not just personal, it became a model for the fledgling nation. Every time the Continental Army suffered a loss, Washington's leadership ensured that the cause endured. One of the lesser-known aspects of Washington's strategy was his use of intelligence and deception. He relied on spies, misinformation, and clever positioning to confuse the British. The Culper spy ring, for example, provided vital intelligence on British troop movements and plans. Washington understood that the revolution could not be won solely through brute force. Information and strategic cunning were equally important. His emphasis on intelligence operations showed a level of sophistication that many contemporary European generals would have envied. The war dragged on for 8 grueling years, and Washington's leadership was tested repeatedly. Harsh winters, including the infamous winter at Valley Forge in 1777 to 1778, saw his troops suffer from disease, starvation, and exposure. Yet Washington used these challenges as teaching moments, training his troops and instilling a sense of purpose and unity. By the end of the war, the Continental Army was a professional force, capable of standing toe-to-toe with the British on the battlefield. The culmination of Washington's efforts came at the Siege of Yorktown in 1781. Working alongside French forces under General Rochambeau, Washington executed a coordinated siege that forced the surrender of British General Cornwallis. This decisive victory effectively ended major combat in the American Revolution, leading to negotiations that would culminate in the Treaty of Paris in 1783. Washington's blend of strategy, patience, and leadership made this victory possible. Without his guidance, the revolution might have faltered long before independence was secured. Washington's legacy did not end with military victory. After the war, he faced the delicate task of guiding a new nation without succumbing to power or ambition. Unlike many revolutionary leaders who seized authority or declared themselves rulers, Washington voluntarily resigned his commission in 1783, returning to civilian life. This act of humility and principle set a precedent for the peaceful transfer of power and established norms that would shape American democracy. His decision reinforced the idea that the revolution was about the nation, not individual glory. It's important to remember that Washington's story is intertwined with broader social and political currents. The American Revolution challenged entrenched hierarchies, questioned the legitimacy of monarchy, and experimented with self-governance. Washington's leadership provided stability and vision, but he also had to navigate the tensions between radical and moderate factions, wealthy elites and common soldiers, and the competing interests of 13 diverse colonies. His ability to manage these dynamics was as crucial to the revolution's success as any battlefield victory. Beyond the battlefield and political sphere, Washington's influence extended into cultural symbolism. He became the embodiment of American ideals, courage, perseverance, and dedication to the public good. Monuments, portraits, and literature would later enshrine him as the father of the nation, but even during his lifetime, his reputation for integrity and strategic acumen inspired confidence in a fragile revolutionary cause. Of course, the revolution was not perfect, and Washington's leadership had limits. Issues like slavery, Native American displacement, and the exclusion of women from political power remained unresolved. Washington himself was a slave owner, a reality that complicates his legacy and reflects the contradictions of the era. Yet even within these constraints, his ability to unify disparate forces, maintain discipline under extreme pressure, and guide the colonies to independence remains remarkable. The American Revolution was, in many ways, a rebellion everyone saw but few fully understood. It was not just a military conflict, it was a political, social, and intellectual upheaval. It relied on diplomacy, intelligence, morale, and leadership as much as on muskets and cannons. And at the heart of this rebellion was George Washington, whose vision, resilience, and moral authority carried the fledgling nation through its most precarious moments. Understanding Washington's role helps us appreciate that the revolution was not inevitable. Independence required risk, sacrifice, and leadership under unimaginable pressure. Washington's ability to navigate logistical nightmares, inspire soldiers, manage alliances, and maintain ethical leadership exemplifies why he remains central to American history. He was not a mythical hero born in a vacuum, he was a man shaped by experience, circumstance, and the extraordinary challenges of his time. In conclusion, the story of George Washington and the American Revolution is one of courage, strategy, and enduring impact. It is a tale of how an untested army, led by a determined and visionary leader, overcame one of the greatest empires in history. It's a story of survival through adversity, moral leadership in the face of temptation, and the creation of a nation that continues to inspire people around the world. The rebellion everyone saw, the battles, the protests, the declarations, was only part of the story. The full picture, including Washington's leadership, resilience, and strategic genius, is what allowed the ideals of independence to become a lasting reality.